A bestseller that has not lost popularity for half a century. More than 7,000 machines that have flown all over the world. The personification of the word helicopter. It's funny that the bird without which it is difficult to imagine aviation was a side effect of an unsuccessful project that Bell almost failed. Hello aviators, Sky here, and today we are meeting the eternal love of private owners, companies, and filmmakers. I present to you the Bell 206 JetRanger. And yes, the history of the Bell 206, like many other successful projects, began with failure. I had to add some drama. In the 1950s, helicopter aviation reached a stage where both the capabilities of the technology and the ambitions of the military allowed replacing the timid first machines with something legendary. The personification of this was the appearance of the Bell UH-1 Iroquois, the great and terrible Huey, which did not remain alone for long. Reconnaissance and observation machines reached the stage at the same time, and it was decided to replace the entire zoo of outdated light birds with something cooler. In 1960, the US Navy initiated a program for a new light observation helicopter, aka LOH. Soon, the Army joined it. Many companies participated in this program, among which there were 3 finalists: Bell, Hiller, and Hughes. Their helicopters looked peculiar, and the main monster of the circus was definitely the brainchild of Bell, which quickly received the name Ugly Duckling. This achievement apparently played a role, and the military leaned towards Hughes's Model 369, which won the tender and received the name OH-58 Kiowa. Bell was disappointed with this defeat, but they did not give up. In fact, if you don't count the appearance, their project was an excellent helicopter. Simple, reliable, economical, and it flew well. Not a bad set for a civilian sector, which at that time was also growing at a furious pace. In addition, adapting military models for the market was already a common practice. Why not do the same here? Of course, the original machine required modifications, replacement of some equipment, changes to the design, and, most importantly, something had to be done with the appearance. Alcohol is not held in high esteem in aviation, and no one would buy this rotary-winged tractor sober. For this work, it was necessary to involve designers from outside, who, without touching too much on technical issues, redesigned the interior and exterior using methods of automobile design. The fuselage was drawn practically from scratch. It was stretched in length, the contours were made streamlined like a fish, and the glazing was optimized, giving the helicopter its signature muzzle. Technically, the changes were not radical, but purely externally, the average person would never guess that this and this, structurally, are practically the same helicopter. And we admit, the designers and engineers definitely did their job. The machine was beautiful, becoming the canon for the entire type for many years to come. At that time, Bell already had civilian models with military roots, the Huey's brother, the Bell 205, and the lightweight piston-powered Bell 47J Ranger. The new member of the family received the name as a legacy of both, the Bell 206 JetRanger. The new helicopter was presented at the NBAA conference in October of 1965. In January 1966, the helicopter took off, and a year later, finally, it began to be delivered to customers. The success was stunning. An excellent, stylish, and at the same time quite cheap machine, it sold like hotcakes, more than 100 in the first year, and this pace was maintaining for decades. In the USA, it was everywhere, with private owners, companies, rescuers, with the police, journalists. And the most obvious example is Hollywood in the 1980s and 90s. If there was a helicopter in a movie, it was most likely the 206. Well, it's time to get to know our hero better. But with a caveat, this isn't a Bell 206. Well, not quite. The helicopter's export history is full of adventures, and the main one is the Italian campaign. Bell at that time was already actively cooperating with the Italian Augusta, and when the 206 model went into production, they immediately sent one aircraft here. Soon, Augusta received a production license and began manufacturing. Yes, our hero is Italian, the Augusta Bell AB-206. In general appearance, our version, like all relatives of the basic 206, is a striking example of the true classic. Streamlined fuselage, power plant, and two-bladed rotor on top, skid landing gear on the bottom, tail boom with a stabilizer, fin, and a tail rotor. The overall length of the helicopter is 11.9 meters, height 2.9 meters. Tiny, even the UH-60 next to it seems huge, not to mention the truly huge brothers. The helicopter looks very stylish, to this day, kudos to the designers. But if you look closely, it's still a bit rough. Most of the structure is metal, there are practically no cute composites. Its camouflage paint is not just for beauty. This helicopter was assembled by order of the Italian army, and has a peculiarity. Being in fact a military machine, it is in many solutions closer not to the original Bell 206, but to its combat brother. While Bell was conquering the civilian market, the winner of the LOH tender was collecting military laurels. The job did not take long, and the Kiowas went to Vietnam. At first, it demonstrated excellent results, conducting observation and support. But luck did not smile on it for long. Soon the Vietnamese mastered air defense, and poorly protected, low-flying helicopters became an easy target for them. Out of 1,422 Kiowas that fought, 964 were lost. Faced with such a terrible indicator, the military revised their strategy, and decided that instead of a light close-in observation machine, they needed something more protected and operating higher, where it was less dangerous. In 1967, the LOH-2 tender was initiated, and now Bell had won, which became the birthday of the JetRanger's military brother, the OH-58 Kiowa helicopter. The circle of technology in nature, a military prototype had a civilian version, on the basis of which a military version was created. And our helicopter is more like an Italian Kiowa. It is of course not as vicious as its American relative, but it also received many military modifications, including its main toy, the M134 minigun, Eternal Love. In our case, of course, dismantled. Sorry. And the main feature of the combat vehicle is, in this case, weight. The JetRanger is quite light, with a maximum takeoff weight of less than 1.5 tons, while our bird is military and it is heavier, a bit, about 100 kilos. By the way, the Kiowas continued to change, and while at the beginning they weighed like our aircraft, only a little more than the original JetRangers, over time they reached as much as 2.5 tons. Nevertheless, to the credit of the designers, the heavier machines with the introduction of improvements did not lose their excellent performance. Well, did not lose too much. The fiery heart of the helicopter is a single Allison 250 turboshaft engine, a legend in its niche, born in fact in the 1960s. The engine was created according to an original design. Here the air is supplied to the compressor, but then goes into the air ducts, bypasses the engine, and now enters the combustion chamber, rotates the turbine, and is thrown out. Therefore, its air intakes are located in the front, and the exhaust pipes stick out like horns from above. This intricate design made Allison's brainchild incredibly compact, and at the same time quite powerful. Coupled with excellent economy and reliability, this fiery heart became one of the secrets of the Bell 206's success. And of course, the engine kept developing. While the Ugly Duckling had the first version with a capacity of 250 horsepower, subsequent versions were accelerated to 317 horsepower, and over time to 420, which allowed it to replace the weak model 206A with the new 206B JetRanger II, the most popular. Our Italian Bell 206C1 flies precisely on this engine. The other components, transmission, control systems, cooling, and so on, are also quite compact and simple. The propeller is modest, just a base that hasn't changed much since the 1960s. Two metal blades give it a diameter of about 10.7 meters. Again, a military legacy. The civilian propeller is slightly smaller. The tail propeller, with a spin of 1.5 meters, is connected to its own transmission, also as simple as possible. Of course, given that the helicopter often flies quite low, there's a risk of running into some power lines. Therefore, a pair of cutters on the top and bottom, protecting the propeller and landing gear respectively, became popular on the 206. The helicopter's performance is quite decent for its class even now, and at one time was considered simply excellent. The civil JetRanger can fly at speeds up to 122 knots, at altitudes up to 20,000 feet. The range is more than 600 kilometers, not bad at all. Military versions are meaner. They can fly faster, but the greater weight has bitten off the altitude and especially the range. Our Italian flies 480 kilometers, and the full-fledged combat Kiowa only 260. Okay, enough of the boring numbers. How does the Bell 206 feel from the point of view of an ordinary user? Here, the design logic from the automotive industry is felt best. It's like a regular car, only flying. 4 doors on both sides, a pilot and a passenger in the front, 3 more passengers in the back. Behind them, the luggage compartment, quite large, 450 liters of volume and 113 kilograms of luggage weight. The rear cabin is quite comfortable, large, soft, leather-covered sofa, flat floor, high ceiling. The air conditioning system is simple but effective. Airflow at the feet, airflow from above, and windows. The cabin is not sealed, so flying at the practical ceiling of the Bell 206 is not very comfortable. But then again, people rarely fly high on such a machine. In general, the interior is like Grandpa's car. The doors are large and comfortable, but as if from a truck, and there is little trim inside, mostly bare metal. But this is a question of customization. Military helicopters are always rough, and all sorts of VIP options can have nicer interiors. Thanks to the large windows in the doors, the side views for passengers are excellent. The view forward is tight here. The walls of the cockpit and the pilot seats block everything, and that damn column in the middle of the cabin is a big nuisance. There's nothing you can do about it. Designing equipment is a battle of compromises. The control mechanisms are simple and light, due to the fact that they are laid through the cabin, through this thing. The front is where there are no problems with beautiful views. Here the glazing is very wide, a large bulging forehead, windows above, below, near the feet, plus windows in the doors. The layout of the cockpit and flight control system is simple. For an average person, all this of course seems scary, but pilots will have nothing to fear. Everything is classic. 2 cyclic sticks in front of the seats, collective sticks, plus a miniature dashboard. And I repeat, this is a military version. The civilian 206's dashboard is even simpler. The drives have hydraulic boosters, so the helicopter is very easy to fly. At the same time, its systems and aerodynamics are well chosen, so it behaves perfectly in cruising flight, in hovering, and during precise maneuvering. That is why both pilots and operators love it so much. For a low-altitude flight over, say, Los Angeles, it is an ideal option. And of course, with such popularity, the helicopter found enthusiasts eager to break records on it. In 1982, the Bell 206 made the first round-the-world helicopter flight in 29 days and 3 hours. In 1983, the flight was repeated by another pilot, who flew alone and even refueled right in the ocean, landing on a container ship. And in 1994, another lone hero repeated the round-the-world flight with a new record, 24 days and 4 hours. The practice is not widespread. For long-distance flights, there are vehicles, well, you know, a little different. But this is, at the very least, proof of reliability. To put yourself in the middle of the sea in a single-engine helicopter, you need to have not only great courage, but also great trust in the machine. Naturally, competition demanded expansion. In the mid-1970s, Bell introduced the 206L LongRanger model, with an extended fuselage and an enlarged cabin, now accommodating 7 people including the pilot. The helicopter of course became heavier, and this required boosting the engine. The Allison 250 was accelerated to 500 and then 650 horsepower, and despite some transmission limitations, this was quite enough for confident flights with a large load and in difficult weather conditions. The helicopter kept developing further. Bell made more and more different modifications. B and L versions were replacing each other, there were also a lot of military options, and then twin-engine versions began to appear, like the 206LT Twin Ranger. But already in the 1990s, it became clear that it was no longer possible to milk this cow. Helicopters competed with great difficulty. As a result, it was decided to expand the line with new machines, which resulted in the single-engine Bell 407 as well as the twin-engine Bell 427. And it was precisely an expansion. The 206 was in no hurry to retire. Augusta ended production in 1996, having made, by the way, about 950 units. The 206B was produced until 2010, and the 206L lasted until 2017. The Bell 206 became iconic and extremely important for its creator. The helicopter, in various modifications, was produced for 50 years, and during this time, the world saw more than 7,300 units. Its iconic nature can be understood even more by its legacy. The Bell 206 received a recognizable design, which, although with changes, continued in their other machines. Even the newest Relentless, which it would seem has nothing in common with the grandfather, still looks very similar to it. And the cultural influence of the Bell 206 cannot be underestimated, thanks to the mass production of the model, its widespread use, and Hollywood movies. For many people, when they pronounce the word helicopter, the first thing that comes to mind is the Bell 206, even if in most cases they don't know what kind of helicopter it is and what it is called. Subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the continuation. Fast flights and soft landings to you.